Millions of Americans rallying across the country in a series of protests organisers hoped would be free of violence. They weren't. And in the midst of all that violence on another scale, a Democrat politician gunned down in her own home. Police tonight still searching for the assassin.
1 minute ago, history was made in Washington, D.C. President Trump's highly anticipated birthday celebration, a massive military parade marking the U.S. Army's 250th anniversary, turned into a political disaster. Tanks rolled, helicopters flew. But then, empty seats, downpouring rain, and millions of protesters flipped the script. In this video, we break down what just happened, the buildup, the backlash, and Trump's furious reaction. June 14th, 2025. Washington, D.C. was set to host one of the most controversial events in modern U.S. history. President Trump had announced a military parade on the National Mall, not just to celebrate the Army's 250th anniversary, but also to mark his 79th birthday. The plan? More than 6,500 active duty troops, 150 military vehicles, and 50 aircraft soaring overhead. The cost? Between $25 and $45 million, including $16 million alone for road repairs after tanks rolled through the Capitol. To Trump's supporters, it was a show of strength. To critics, it was a show of authoritarianism, with many comparing it to military parades in North Korea or Russia. Days before the event, Trump gave a tense press conference from the Oval Office. He issued a stark warning to protesters, saying they would be met with very big force, not just in Washington, but nationwide. He labeled the demonstrators as people who hate our country. That's when the backlash exploded. In response, organizers launched a protest movement called No Kings. Their goal? To hold a protest in every single congressional district on the same day as the parade. On June 14th, the tanks rolled in. 6,500 troops marched across the mall. Dozens of tanks and armored vehicles filled the streets. Fighter jets and helicopters roared overhead in synchronized flyovers. It was the largest military parade on U.S. soil in over 30 years. But then came the rain. A sudden downpour forced officials to start the parade early, before many guests even arrived. Bleachers were soaked, foot traffic stalled, and even key flyovers had to be cut short. Optically, it was a disaster. High-profile attendees like Melania Trump and Senator Marco Rubio were seen sitting quietly, visibly unenthused. Entire rows of bleachers were empty. The crowd size was far below expectations. Trump's team blamed the weather, but critics pointed to the protests and public outrage as the real reason for the low turnout. For a president who cares deeply about crowd size and appearance, this was a massive embarrassment. As tanks rumbled through D.C., the rest of the country was making noise too. In over 2,000 cities and towns, Americans took to the streets in the No Kings protest movement. In Los Angeles, protests clashed with police as tear gas filled the air. In Grand Junction, Colorado, a town with fewer than 70,000 people, 3,000 showed up uninvited. Most had never protested before. In Minnesota, a tragic incident occurred during a rally, adding tension to an already chaotic day. Veterans, students, activists, and ordinary citizens came together. One Vietnam veteran said, "I fought to stop this kind of behavior." By day's end, an estimated 7.2 million Americans had joined protests nationwide. As rain drenched the Capitol, the symbolism was impossible to ignore. The president parading tanks through the streets, a soaked and underwhelming crowd, protesters flooding cities across the nation. The message was clear. This wasn't unity. It was division on full display. Beyond the politics, the cost of the event triggered serious outrage. The total bill came to roughly $45 million. Taxpayers covered repairs to roads damaged by tanks. One estimate put that figure at $16 million alone. Critics in Congress blasted the event as a waste of resources. Senator Dick Durbin said the money should have gone to medical defense research, not to fund what he called a vanity parade. Polls showed that 60% of Americans believed the money could have been better spent elsewhere. But the biggest criticism wasn't about money. It was about the message. Civil rights groups warned the parade resembled authoritarian behavior. They argued that using military force for political theater blurred the line between civilian leadership and military loyalty, a dangerous precedent in a democratic nation. The phrase, "no kings," didn't come out of nowhere. It was a warning about creeping power and unchecked ego. Despite the backlash, Trump was unapologetic. When asked if the parade made him feel like a king, he responded, "I don't feel like a king. We're not a king at all." He doubled down on his decision, calling the protests unpatriotic and defending the costs as peanuts compared to what he claimed the event offered in national pride. But inside his campaign, reports suggest he was furious about the turnout and optics. What was meant to be a historic triumph had become a national controversy. This parade didn't just highlight division, it deepened it. One side saw a strong show of patriotism and power. The other saw creeping authoritarianism, empty symbolism, and threats to democracy. The empty bleachers spoke volumes. So did the millions protesting in the streets. This was supposed to be Trump's grand celebration. Instead, it exposed just how divided America remains. Across the country, stories poured in. A disabled veteran in Arkansas said, "I didn't fight so we could worship one man." In Kentucky, over 4,000 marched, the largest protest in the state in years. The parade woke something up, and not in the way Trump had hoped. So, what now? More protests are already planned. No Kings is growing fast, with over 2,000 local organizers. Politically, this may become a defining moment of Trump's campaign. He hoped to show power. Instead, he showed just how fragile the line is between authority and democracy. Security concerns remain, especially after the violence in Minnesota and clashes in California. And with millions watching and reacting, the question isn't just about the parade anymore. It's about what kind of country America wants to be. This wasn't just a birthday parade. It was a test of optics, of power, of people's patience. Trump wanted a triumphant show of strength. Instead, he got a storm, an empty stage, and a nation saying, "We will not be silent." Because when democracy is threatened, it doesn't matter how loud the tanks roar. The people still speak louder. What do you think? Was this parade patriotic or a step too far? Did Trump miscalculate, or did America finally wake up? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you joined a protest, tell us where. For more real-time updates on the stories shaping our world, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. We'll see you in the next one.